What about Bitcoin? Well, even JP Morgan, we're not fans of JP Morgan or any banks, right? But they say, well, Bitcoin's retail demand is going to remain strong ahead of the halving event. Well, it doesn't take a bank to say that for us to know that. We already knew that. We knew it way before the banks. Okay, but even JP Morgan saying, well, when the halving event comes, the Bitcoin production cost, this is interesting, and not a whole lot of people talk about it because it takes miners approximately 20,000 to create a Bitcoin right now. So they're still very profitable. But after the halving event, because the supply gets cut in half, so basically the number of Bitcoins the miners get cut in half, that means their production cost basically doubles to 40,000. Okay, so that means as we head toward the halving event, the price should catch up and exceed 40,000, right? That just makes sense. And every halving event, we see Bitcoin rise up to a certain percentage of the previous peak and then move forward, right? But that's from a miner's perspective. From a retail perspective, just looking at history, looking at the past 4-year cycles, this is how it's always been. And I don't expect any different this time around because, like I said, again, macro conditions are improving. 2024 will probably be the year when the Fed starts cutting rates, if you think about it. So we're going to pivot and see rates come down, which, again, is optimal for markets. Then you have the halving event, and who knows what else is going to happen. We still have trillions of dollars on the sidelines. We have now China entering crypto. There's a lot of really good stuff happening. And in case you're wondering, we're about 77%. 77%. So we're about 23% away from the halving event, right? And you can see we're at that exact moment. Well, 2 cycles ago, 77%, we started our upward trend already, right? Just slightly, but not too much. Now, if you look at the last one, we would have gone sideways had that COVID crash not happened yet, right? But we're like kind of in that moment where, yeah, we could trend up slightly or just kind of go sideways. But then look at what happens when the halving cycle happens, right? It's clear. It's almost immediate after the halving cycle, we start our upward trend. So, is it going to happen this time around? Probably. And this is what going back to what JP Morgan said and going back to this certain level, that level is that 61.8% Fibonacci level. So that would bring Bitcoin up to about 48,000. And again, this makes sense because if it's going to cost the miners $40,000 to produce each Bitcoin, well, it makes sense that Bitcoin's price is a little bit above that, right? Because miners want to be profitable. If the cost was 40,000 and Bitcoin's still at 27,000, well, then there's a problem, right? But the economics of it, I mean, Bitcoin always trails the hash rate, which essentially means Bitcoin's price trails the difficulty, but it always catches up and surpasses every single time. So it's looking more and more like we'll probably be right around 48, 50,000 by the halving event. So in the meantime, we will slowly trend upwards toward that level. Now, some people think we will hit that level first and then come back down much sooner than that. Okay, some people are thinking even in July we may hit $48,000 and then come down. That, if that happens, it'll be very similar to what happened in 2019 when we peaked out and then came back down, right? That could still happen, but at a grander scale, it's pretty obvious what happens, right? I mean, it's clear as day. So that 48,000 seems like a likely target for either this summer or the halving event, which is coming up not too long, less than a year. Less than a year. Here's another one that's predicting Bitcoin to be at $54,000. Okay, 54,000 before the halving event and before we move on. So history is on our side. So even though Bitcoin right now is a little stagnant, you could say it's weak, it's boring, right? This is okay. It happens every single cycle. There are moments during recovery as we lead into the next halving event. There are moments where it's like this. But just keep in mind, keep in the back of your head, 27,000 Bitcoin is not 15,000 Bitcoin. It's not 4,000 Bitcoin. It's not 3,000 or 100 Bitcoin. Okay? We're in much better shape than before, so you can't compare how bad it is now versus before because it doesn't compare. We are magnitudes higher than before, right? And it'll be the same thing. Our high will be magnitudes higher than the previous high. 4.6% of circulating supply of all Bitcoin purchased right around this point, around 27,000. That's interesting. That's very, very interesting. So if that's the case, right, and you look at all the other price points, I mean, that's the case. I mean, vast majority of people are even at even or in the green if you think about it, right? I mean, this is not the medium price. This is just a large, this is like almost 5% is at this point. But that means a vast majority of people bought in lower or around this price, right? Or close to this price, I should say. So they're pretty much like even or maybe a little bit in the red or green. But then also, if you look at 4% was purchased at 16.5, well, those people are definitely in the red, right? So if you think about it, there's actually a lot. If you look at everything below this 27,000 mark, right? There's a lot of people that bought at low prices, and they are now in the green, right? That's what you're supposed to do. DCA, 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 and DCA. We have more economic data this week, of course. No Fed speaking. That's terrific. It seems like we got all these Feds giving conflicting opinions, and we don't need any of them. We just need one opinion, and that is from Powell. But we have a few more economic data. The only one that's really, I would say the only thing that's really, that would affect the market would be jobless claims on Thursday. Factory orders, I don't know. I don't think that's going to do much. But moving on,